In the quiet town of Lakewood Ridge, where the wealthy live behind pristine gates and manicured lawns, lived Liz and her daughter, Kayla. Liz was a single mom. Kayla's dad walked out on her when Kayla was only 3 months old. Liz was torn and hasn't been with a man since, well. That's until she met Marcus. Marcus was the kind of man who commanded attention the moment he entered a room. Tall and broad-shouldered, he carried himself with an air of authority that came naturally from years of success in the real estate world. Liz and Marcus met through an elite charity gala in the heart of the city. Liz, a well-known socialite and philanthropist, had been heavily involved in high-profile fundraising events since Kayla's father left. Marcus, a successful real estate mogul with a reputation for charm and business acumen, had been one of the major sponsors of the event. Marcus and Liz started to spend every day getting to know one another. Liz decided it was time to take the next step in their relationship and invite Marcus to meet Kayla one Sunday afternoon. Liz planned a casual family brunch at their home. She arranged the table with fresh flowers, a spread of delicious food, and a bottle of champagne to celebrate the occasion. Kayla had been somewhat skeptical of her mother's new relationship, feeling a sense of uncertainty about Marcus' intentions. Liz knew this, so she wanted the meeting to feel warm and inviting. When Marcus arrived, Liz greeted him with a warm hug and a bright smile, making sure to show Kayla that she was happy and comfortable with him. "Kayla, come meet Marcus," she called, her voice cheerful. Kayla walked into the living room, feeling a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Marcus turned, his charming smile instantly lighting up the room as he extended his hand. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Kayla. I've heard so much about you," he said, his deep voice resonating with sincerity. By the end of the meal, Liz was beaming with satisfaction, convinced that the introduction had gone well. Kayla, while still unsure, found herself drawn to Marcus' confidence and humor, even if she was hesitant to fully embrace the idea of her mother moving on. Little did they know, this initial meeting would set off a chain of events that would change their lives forever, leading to a web of secrets and betrayals that none of them could have anticipated. Within months, Marcus had swept Liz off her feet, and they were married in a lavish ceremony, bringing him into her home and into her life alongside Kayla. After the wedding, Marcus began to show an increased interest in Kayla's life, attending her art shows and expressing admiration for her creativity. His attention made Kayla's feel special, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, especially considering her strained relationship with her mother. Liz had always been distant from Kayla, more focused on her career and social status than on being a mother. She spent her days at high society luncheons and charity events, leaving Marcus and Kayla alone in their lavish home more often. One afternoon, while Liz was out running errands, Marcus came to help Elena with her art projects. They worked closely together, their shoulders touching as they reached for the same brush. That was when the air became charged with unspoken desires. Marcus leaned in closer, his voice low as he whispered, "You're really talented, you know. I can't believe how gifted you are." Feeling emboldened, Kayla looked up into his eyes, noticing the way they glinted with something deeper. In that moment, something inside her snapped. She craved the connection, the validation he offered. As if sensing her vulnerability, Marcus brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and paused, their faces inches apart. The tension that had been building reached a boiling point, and before either of them could think clearly, Marcus kissed her. The kiss was electric, igniting a fire that both had been trying to suppress. In that instant, the world outside faded away, leaving just the two of them lost in the moment. After the kiss, they both pulled back, breathless and shocked by what had just happened. Panic set in, and Kayla felt a rush of guilt, knowing that this was a betrayal of her mother's trust. But Marcus' deep gaze held her captive, and he whispered, "We can't ignore this connection." For months, Kayla and Marcus continued their secret relationship behind Liz's back, meeting in hotel rooms or slipping into his office late at night. The guilt weighed heavily on Kayla, but Marcus assured her that Liz would never find out. He painted their affair as something passionate, something meant to be. Kayla, lost in the allure of the forbidden, believed him. One evening, as Kayla prepared for what was supposed to be another secret rendezvous with Marcus, she received a text message from him. "Come to the house at midnight. We need to talk." It was odd for him to invite her to the house while Liz was home, but something in his message felt urgent, so she went. When Kayla arrived, the house was eerily quiet. She stepped inside and noticed the faint sound of music playing from upstairs. Her heart raced as she climbed the stairs, expecting to find Marcus waiting for her. But when she reached the bedroom, she froze in the doorway. There, on the bed, was Liz, her mother, lying in a pool of blood. A jagged knife lay on the floor next to the bed, its blade stained crimson. Kayla's breath caught in her throat, her hands trembling as she struggled to comprehend the scene before her. Her mother's body was still, her eyes wide open, fixed in a final moment of terror. In that instant, Kayla realized what had happened. Marcus had killed her mother. Before she could react, Marcus appeared behind her, his face calm but his eyes cold. "I had no choice," he said, his voice eerily steady. "She found out about us." Kayla's mind raced. How could this have happened? How could things have gone so far? She had never wanted this. She had never wanted anyone to die, but now her mother was dead, and she was complicit in the affair that had led to this brutal murder. Marcus moved closer, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "We can be together now," he whispered in her ear, as if the murder of her mother was nothing more than a small obstacle. "It's done. There's no going back." Kayla pulled away from him, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Marcus' grip on her tightened, his once charming demeanor now replaced with something far more sinister. "I did this for us," he said, his voice growing darker. "Don't you understand? She was going to ruin everything. We had no choice." Kayla looked at him, horrified by the man she had once been infatuated with. She had been blind to his true nature, lost in the fantasy of their affair, never realizing that Marcus was capable of such violence. But now it was all clear. He was a monster, and she had played a part in unleashing him. In a moment of panic, Kayla grabbed the knife from the floor and swung it at Marcus, her hands shaking. He stumbled back, caught off guard, but quickly regained control, wresting the knife from her grip. The struggle was chaotic, fueled by fear and desperation. Kayla fought with everything she had, but Marcus was stronger. As they grappled, the knife plunged into his chest. The force of it sent him crashing to the ground, his face contorted in shock as blood poured from the wound. He gasped for breath, trying to speak, but no words came. Kayla stood over him, watching as the life drained from his eyes, the weight of what had just happened crashing down on her. Marcus was dead. Her mother was dead. And now she was standing in the middle of a nightmare she couldn't escape from. The next few hours passed in a blur. Kayla called the police, her voice trembling as she tried to explain what had happened. When they arrived, she told them everything: the affair, the murder, the struggle. The detectives looked at her with a mixture of pity and disbelief as they handcuffed her and led her out of the house. In the days that followed, the story made headlines. Wealthy, husband and wife dead in shocking love. Triangle Murder. The public was captivated by the sordid details of the affair, the betrayal, and the violence that had torn a family apart. Kayla was charged with manslaughter, though her lawyers argued that it was self-defense. Still, the guilt weighed heavily on her, She had never meant for any of this to happen, but in the end, her choices had led to 2 deaths. In the cold silence of her jail cell, Kayla replayed the events in her mind over and over again, wondering how things had gone so wrong, and realizing that some betrayals come with consequences far more deadly than anyone could ever imagine.